Evan John Yusenko. Sounds like the name of a serial killer, right? Today, under his alias of Ghost Woman, he releases his debut album, and with similarities to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, but better. Indie Miners reviews his new album, Ghost Woman.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Indie Miners. Ben and Al with you here, and today there will be a big shout out to our Canadian friends because we're covering one of your own, Ghost Woman, with their self-titled debut album. Good morning to you, Al. How's Hobart going?
Oh, mate, sunshine lollipops down here, mate. Good to see you. Looking forward to reviewing this one, mate.
That's great. That's great. Well, let's get straight into the rundown, shall we? And Ghost Woman and the debut album. So Ghost Woman is the brainchild of an Evan John Yushchenko. He's been a session musician for a little while now. So he's been on the scene, supporting Michael Rault, and in particular been hanging around with the likes of the King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, as well as the Mild High Club. This comes in at 10 tracks, 33 minutes. So Al, that is very much in my sweet spot. In terms of what the Spotify teardown statistics are saying, what we have here is an album that is very low in terms of tempo, high in energy, and that often happens with some of these lo-fi albums. Interestingly enough, the danceability statistics are coming through as highs. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I think what it is meaning is that it is a little bit of a toe tapper without being disco worthy, if that makes sense. In terms of the similar album, so if you do like this album, if we're considering this, Al, to be an offering from our Canadian friends, here's one right back at them. Good Morning. So Barnyard by Good Morning is a great album that and one that I've been listening to quite a bit this year, and in more generally one of the best bands to come out of Australia, in my view, for the last 5 years. So if you like this one, certainly check out that one. So Al, with all of that in mind, what was your first impressions of this album?
Yeah, thanks, mate. Look, it's one of those albums that you listen to for the first time and you go, geez, that sounds like lots of kind of familiar artists at the time, but then you kind of try and match the artists that you're thinking of, and it's quite a challenge. Some similar artists I kind of thought it sounded like on first impressions were Foxygen, harking back to a Nick Armstrong kind of sound, as well as a tiny little bit of Jim James. But I just think this album is just an absolute cracker of a debut album, mate. So I think some of the stats you gave there in terms of the speechiness, I thought was quite funny seeing Kate Bush come up there. Of course, with Stranger Things being popular at the moment, and she's running up that pile of money. I don't know whether Ghost Woman will be doing the same in the short term, but in terms of the liveness as well, that came up as 18%, and I think this album live is going to be an absolute cracker, mate. Give us your first impressions.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, so look, I think there's very few three pillars here in terms of this particular album and what they've been able to present. So I think the first one is that it's very much rooted in what I like to call shotgun psychedelica. I'm not sure if that's a term. You should look it up. Maybe I've just invented it. But really the likes of the Brian Jonestown Massacre. So those bands that came out in the 90s, maybe after that sort of that 60s revival type of era where bands were coming out as a sort of the second generation of those types of acts. That was certainly one. Garage rock, so the rock revival band in the early 2000s, there's a lot of songs that it does remind you of that. And then thirdly, the ZZ Top Black Keys style blues. So they play that type of thing. There's a lot of tracks off the album that did remind me of those particular bands. But yeah, this one, Al, I really enjoyed listening to off the bat. It was an easy listen, and there doesn't happen often where you listen to an album and instantly you get captivated by what was on offer. So very much an enjoyable listen. So I guess with that in mind, we can get into our top three tracks, and I've got the right ability to go through that today. And it was a very tough decision, Al. Look, there was a lot of candidates who were very worthy of our top three, but in terms of the third track, the bronze medalist, so to speak, that we've been able to pick out is All the Time, which is the first track off the album. It is a very good introduction, very solid introduction into Ghost Woman. The second one, Behind Your Eyes, I know, Al, that's probably one of your favourites off the album. It is a bit of a toe tapper, very much in that garage rock revival sound. But my favourite one off the album is a very similar one from a garage rock perspective, Dead and Gone. I think that was an outstanding track. But now you could probably select three or four others to speak about in terms of the top three. So I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that.
Oh, that's a pretty solid top three, mate. I'm glad you took the reins this week because I struggled to get a top three. I think the album from start to finish, and as you mentioned, 10 tracks, 33 minutes, it's just every single track is different. It's solid. The album's just flawless, in my opinion, for a debut album.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. So I guess it's now time to flip our cards over, so to speak. Al, what are you going to give this album out of 5 stars?
Yeah, I'm going to give it 4.5. As I said, I think it's pretty flawless. I'd be really interested to see it live, to see how it holds up with the band in tow. But I just think it is an absolute cracker of a debut album and just a gem that, you found this, mate. You sent it to me Friday night. I'd never even heard of this guy, Evan John Yushchenko. Sounds like a bloke who should be on Crime Watch, but I'm giving it a solid 4.5, mate. What about yourself?
Look, very interesting for me. I think there was probably one or two songs short from being a great album, so that sounds very harsh, but I'm giving it 4 stars. This is certainly a candidate for me for one of the albums of the year. I very much enjoyed it. I'm very much looking forward to hopefully them coming over to these shores at some point in time. I'd love to be able to see them live. I think they'd be able to produce something really cracking as a live experience. So 4 stars for me, but definitely something to check out. So that is Ghost Woman and their debut album. That wraps up another episode of Indie Miners. Please look to subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitter, and let us know if there's an album you would like us to look at. So until next time, bye for now, and thank you for watching.